Can you dig it?
Hey Jody, is there anything that will grow in the winter?
Yeah, Colin. Vancouver actually has a great climate for winter gardening.
Winter gardening? Really?
Yes, there's lots of plants that will grow in the mild climate that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. However, not every garden is suited to be in a winter garden.
So what does make a garden a good winter garden?
A good winter garden gets enough sun throughout the winter so that the plants can grow a little bit. A garden that might be a good garden in the summer when the sun is really high in the sky might actually be in shade all winter when the sun is lower in the sky.
How can I tell if my garden gets sun in the winter?
Well, Colin, if you're in the wintertime, you can go to your garden and watch it during the day and see if the sun hits the surface of the soil. But if it's in the summertime or some other time, you'll have to guess. And the best way to do that is to go into your garden and face south, and then look on the horizon and see if there's any big shapes, like big tall trees or buildings, that will block the sun as it gets lower in the sky.
Okay. So what else makes a good winter garden?
Well, Colin, you need to protect your winter garden plants from the wind. And the winter wind especially can really dry out and cool down your plants. But most important of all for a winter garden is that it needs to be very well drained.
Right, it really does rain a lot in winter time.
Exactly. And often a garden that is really dry in the summer will sit in a puddle in the winter. So make sure that your winter garden is well drained and not in a wet spot. And even elevating your winter garden is a good idea. So raised beds work great for winter gardens.
What can I eat out of my garden in the winter?
Well, you can grow carrots, spinach, Brussels sprouts, radishes, kale, onions.
And I heard you can do cilantro and spinach and Swiss chard and oriental greens.
I know, it's a long list, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of fresh fruit.
Let's take a look at how some of these winter vegetables grow so we can know when to plant them.
Okay.
For good winter gardens, we need to use the heat and the long days of the summer to grow the vegetables big enough so they can survive through the winter.
Wow, I like carrots. But when do I have to plant them for my winter garden?
Carrots are a great crop because we can almost be eating them all year round. And to eat them in the winter, we actually plant them in the summertime. So for a root crop like a carrot, it needs long days and the heat of the summer to make that really nice, juicy, sweet carrot root. And then as the weather gets colder, it's going to be able to survive in the cold ground and sit there all winter long without rotting.
Like a big outdoor fridge. This will take a while to grow, so we want to grow it in June or July.
Exactly, because we want the carrot to be able to form a nice big root while it's still warm and it has the energy to grow.
So if I plant it in September, it'll be too cold to grow.
Exactly, because October, November, the weather is too cold and the days are too short for the carrot to be able to grow properly.
Right.
So if we move it back and plant in July or August, look at where the carrot gets to grow. Right in the middle of the hot part of the summer.
What about kale?
Well, kale, as you can see, here you hold that side, has a bit of a longer growing time than carrots do. And so we have to start thinking about planting kale even earlier in the summer than we did for carrots. So we want the kale to be nice and big by the end of the fall so it's ready to go into winter. So if we look back to where it needs to start, it's right in between June and July.
What about green leaves like spinach or lettuce?
That's a good question. With something like spinach or lettuce that doesn't have to grow a big plant, just has to grow some leaves, we can plant them a little bit closer to the winter. But because they're not such a big plant, they actually need a little bit of protection to be able to grow through the winter.
So what kind of protection?
Well, if you're lucky enough to have a greenhouse, your lettuce and your spinach will do just fine, and they'll really like being protected in a greenhouse.
Well, I definitely don't have a greenhouse.
If you don't have a greenhouse, you can use something called a cloche. which is like a mini greenhouse that fits right over your garden bed, but it's a lot smaller than a greenhouse. And if that's a little bit too much effort, you can even use something called floating row cover, which is like a light blanket that lets light and rain in, and you put it over your leafy greens.
Wow, that sounds cozy.
Yeah, for your vegetables.
I can't wait to try them.
Sounds like a plan.
Please subscribe.
And we'll see you next time on
Can You Dig It?